1. This was a few years back when my sister, my cousin, and I used to have family camping vacations. It was always the same campground and the same time of year. We knew that campground inside and out, and we were always together in a group. If someone wanted to go to the beach, we all packed up and went. We even made the walk to the restrooms together. That's where our glitch happened. Most of the time, it was only one of us who had to use the restroom, so the others would sit on the bench outside. The restrooms had a main walk path that went through the middle of the building, and you could access the showers on the right or men's and women's restrooms on the left. The bench faced into this walk path, so we would sit and people watch while we waited. This time it was my cousin and me sitting on the bench, chatting and waiting for my sister. We both looked up as a lady and her daughter walked past, out of the women's restroom, and walked past us sitting on the bench. We turned back to each other and kept talking. We hear the door open again about a minute and a half later, and it's the same woman and her daughter. I know it was because I remember thinking how cute the little girl's dress was she had on. And they were having the exact same conversation as they were when they first passed about the little girl washing her hands. My cousin and I fell silent and turned to each other. At the same time, we were like, she came out of the bathroom already, like 2 minutes ago. We still to this day have no way of explaining it. Another time, the same cousin and I went horseback riding down my road like we used to do every summer. Near the end of the road to the right, there's a wooded area with a path going through it. As we approached the woods, the horses started acting weird, like they were scared to keep going. Having grown up with these stubborn horses, we figured they were trying to get their way and head back to the barn. We kept them going forward and got in front of the path in the woods. We both looked down it thinking maybe there's something spooking the horses. There was a man squatting in the middle of the path looking down. When we stopped the horses, he turned and looked up, and he didn't have a human face. His nose was long like a canine, and his head was larger than a human. He stood up, and his stature wasn't human-like either. And we realized he wasn't wearing a shirt but was covered in hair. As soon as he stood up, we turned the horses around and booked it back to the house. We didn't say a word until we were back in our yard. We were speechless. What had we just seen? And when I checked the time, about 30 extra minutes had gone by from our normal ride time. There's no way we sat there staring at this thing for 30 minutes. No one ever believes this story. But my cousin and I know now. There's some weird stuff out there. 2. When I was 12, my family of 4 went to the Oregon coast to visit my grandmother. She lived in Portland. On one of the days, we decided to stay overnight in a hotel that was on the coast to see the ocean. As Portland is roughly an hour away from the ocean, and my little sister had never seen it before. It was a cold, windy, and rainy day, and unfortunately, it turned out that the area of beach our hotel was near had a shitty beach. The sand was coarse, and there were lots of sticks and rocks ashore, so we didn't go there to swim that first day. We just went to go and see it and wet our feet. It took us about 5 minutes to walk to the beach from our hotel to the shore. As soon as we approached the waterline, I ran into the frigid water. It was like March, I believe, but I was so excited. I didn't make it very far before my mom freaked out and told me I was in too deep. She was such a worrywart, and I also got too cold. My little sister, who was 6 at the time, was wearing a dress, and I could barely get her to wet her feet. She was scared, and the water was so cold. My dad noticed pretty quickly a fossil. It was an impression fossil of some seaweed. He still has it in his man cave at his house. So he was entertained looking for more. My mom and grandma were just sitting back a little bit talking. So I decided to entertain my sister by drawing in the sand. She complains that her stick is too small, or it breaks or something like that. I don't remember, but for some reason I look over my shoulder and I see a bigger stick for drawing in the sand, from where we are both squatted, and I hop up and go to get it. I take several quick strides, pick up the stick, then turn around, and she's gone. I look right and left, down both directions of the coastline, where I see the others in the opposite direction. But not my sister, where she had been crouched down drawing in the sand right behind me 10 seconds ago. I instantly feel panicked and call out her name. "Ashley! Ashley! Where did you go?" My dad straightens up from scouring the sandbeds, and my grandma and mom stop mid-sentence and look over. Again I call, "Ashley!" By now I had ran the several feet back over to where we had been drawing in the sand, and there were no footprints marking her ever having walked anywhere at all. I was so confused. The adults ran over to me. "Where's your sister? You were supposed to be watching her," one of them said. I know, I only turned my back for a second and walked a little bit away to grab this stick. She was right here just a second ago." "There's no footprints," my dad says as he runs toward the water, as we had all been leaving footprints everywhere we had been walking. We all panic. She was only 6 years old. Ashley! We were all calling for her. My dad instructed my mom to head down on the direction of the coast, and my grandmother the other, while I help him look in the water. Horrible thoughts were going through my mind and my heart was pounding. This can't be real. This can't be happening. My baby sister is lost and it's my fault. It's important to note that this was before the time of cell phones, as it was the 90s. Also, this was a plain beach with no caves or large logs, save for one small boulder the size of a go-kart, which we crawled on top of to look for her and circled around maniacally, so she couldn't have been hiding behind it either. We had seen no other people at the beach, and there's no way she could have walked back to the hotel in the time I turned around. Plus, she would have had to walk past me, and we would have seen her walking for the minutes it would have taken her to walk there, even if she army crawled because there was no tall grass. By now it felt like it had been 30 minutes, although it had probably only been 10, and my grandma had decided to run back to the hotel to call for help. When, all of a sudden, while my dad and I are chest deep in the water, sticking our heads under looking for her, I pop my head back up, and I see her, just calm as can be, drawing in the sand, squatting where she was when she had disappeared, like nothing had happened. "Ashley!" I cry aloud. My mom hears me and looks over. She runs over to her and my dad, and I run through the freezing water as fast as I can. We all run up to her, freaking out and crying. My mom quickly turns to a form of understandable yet age-appropriate anger, demanding to know where she went and why she would do such a thing to us at the ocean of all places. Ashley, however, was looking at us all like we had completely lost our minds, like we were actually starting to scare her. She was confused. She said that she didn't go anywhere at all, that she was right there drawing in the sand the whole time, that she never heard or saw any of us searching for her at all. This did not make any sense. So I asked her about me getting up to get the stick, and basically from her account, that had just barely happened. So what the hell happened? It was like my sister just disappeared for real for a little while. We were all confused, but just so thankful that she was okay, that we didn't care. But I've always vividly remembered this because it was just so weird. For her to just be back so suddenly right where she had been, out in the open, when she had disappeared with nowhere to hide. Perhaps she just glitched out of this reality for a little while. But thank goodness it was corrected, and she had no memory of it. 3. About a year ago I was headed to a local Target to go window shopping with my mom. We hung around for a bit, looking at random things, then went our separate ways. She went off to the middle of the store where the kitchen aisle is, and I went to the back of the store where the electronics are. Now, I've been to this store hundreds of times, so I know it well enough to know that I need to go through the furniture aisle, go straight, then the toy aisle, which would then lead to the electronic aisle. After a few minutes of looking at games and walking around randomly, she texts me and asks me if I'm ready to leave. I tell her I am, and she asks me to meet her in the front. I start back down the toy aisle, then through the furniture. That's when something seemed off. I come from a small town, and this Target is the only one close by, so it's usually filled to the gills with people. However, after I turned the corner from the electronics aisle into the toy aisle, there were less people and it got quieter. After getting into the furniture aisle, no one was around, and it was dead silent. No chatter, no employees over the intercom system, not even the distant sounds of the squeaky wheels on the old shopping carts. Absolutely nothing. My heart starts beating faster as it's becoming more and more evident that something is not right. I pick up the pace and make my way towards what I knew to be the kitchen aisle where my mom would have been walking out from. But when I turned the corner, the shelves were empty, and there was nothing but a giant black wall. It towered above me, giving off a menacing aura, almost as if to tell me, "You should not be here." I was utterly confused and stopped in my tracks. I turned the corner faster than I had before, and was starting to pick up a slow jogging speed. I could feel the wall staring at me as I walked away from it. I turned the last corner to reach the front of the store, and suddenly, everything was right again. The voices of the customers were back. I could hear a baby crying in the cart, and the never-ending beep, beep of the item scanners. I hear coughing to my right, and my mom is there walking towards me. "You ready?" She's completely unaware of what just happened. "Come here." I start back in the direction of where the wall was. "Did you ever notice that black wall? That wasn't there before, was it?" As we were walking there, I realized that the shelves are stocked again. There's still people around as usual, and, as you can guess, no black wall. We walk along the entire side of the store, and absolutely no black wall. She tells me that's crazy, as I'm standing there stupefied. I don't know what happened. I remember it so vividly and so clearly that I don't think it could have been an hallucination. I was definitely not asleep either. I don't have much else to say about it, as it's never happened again. Hopefully someone else has experienced something relatable. If not, thank you for listening. 4. I would like to start out by saying, since I was about 5 years old, I've always been able to astral project and lucid dream. Self-conscious and aware. This is not my first glitch, just the only one I remember with such vivid details. I had been homeless for about a year, couch surfing. My stepbrother T and I share the same dad. His mom remarried and had a set of twins, so my brother M, one of the twins, has still lived with his parents. He allowed me to sleep in his car. It was mid-February. I had fallen asleep at around 10 p.m. in the front passenger seat, after what seemed like forever. I wake up to crank the engine and run the heat for about 30 minutes, after I kill the engine and immediately fall back asleep. Now, to get a vision for the setup, imagine the blue L-shaped Tetris block. You have 3 cubes in a straight line and 2 side by side with a total of 4. Still with me? Okay. Now picture that his car is parked in a driveway. The car on the right of the ones that are parked side by side leads up to the porch and into the house. My brother M parks his car in the back through the alley, so he would be parked at the tip of the L at a 37-degree angle. This is where the magic happens. The next time I open my eyes, beams of sunlight hit my face and wake me up. After laying there for a few minutes, I raise the seat only to see that the driveway is completely empty. No snow on the ground, no cars. I sat there for a few more minutes wondering, why didn't I hear a single car door shut? Not to mention I never heard an engine start. Rubbing my eyes, trying to come to as I look around, as I consciously observe my surroundings, I become aware of this glow, as if my sight had a glamour glow filter. I thought to go outside to investigate. As I extend my arm to open the door, I'm overwhelmed by this high-pitched, ear-ringing frequency with an equally bright white light to match. I wake up and immediately raise up, only to find everything was back how it was before the glitch. No glow, snow was back on the ground. I sit there, completely mind-fucked. I step outside to stretch and come to, looking around wondering. I sit back in the car and my brother M comes out. I ask him why I woke up and the driveway was empty. Confused, he asked, "What the fuck am I talking about?" I told him the experience and he just laughed, saying, "I'm tripping and nobody moved anything." Just last night, M and I were at his parents' house. M had brought it up and I explained the story to his parents. They all had a good laugh. I will swear up and down my experience. The energy I felt, the glow I was seeing. It wasn't a lucid dream. I was very much awake. Just the fact of not knowing why or if it was supposed to be a moment of enlightenment. I don't know. I just know it changed the way I view reality. 5. In middle school, I had the habit of staying up late reading until one of my parents made me turn out the lights, or I got tired enough that the words started moving on the page. When I was in either 7th or 8th grade, I was up late reading. I finally decided to go to sleep, so I turned out the lights, put my book away, and lay down on my side, back against the wall. I had my eyes closed for maybe a minute or two, when I heard a loud crashing downstairs. There's a specific clear plastic bowl that I have dropped numerous times, so I know what it sounds like dropping and spinning on the floor. The kitchen was right below my room, and the sound was clear as day, and in my mind, I knew someone had come into our house, because my whole family was already asleep. I knew I had to get to my parents' room to let them know someone was in our house. I was truly terrified, and wondered if I should grab my little sister from the room next to mine before dashing across the upstairs to get to my parents' room. I decided not to grab her because I was panicked, so good thing there wasn't really a murderer in our house. Once I was in my parents' room, I shook my dad awake, super duper scared. I told them someone was in our house, and my dad grabbed the baseball bat he kept in his closet and went downstairs. My mom and I waited in their room for what felt like half an hour, but was most likely around 3 minutes. Dad came back up, tired, and told me nothing was out of place, that it was just a dream and to go back to bed. How would I dream that, when I had only been laying down for a minute or two? I have done some Google searches, and besides the paranormal explanations, which could be the case, I mostly got exploding head syndrome, which is where, as you are falling asleep, you suddenly hear an incredibly loud noise. That could have been the case, except I experienced something like this not long after the first time, while I was wide awake. The second time this happened, I was downstairs on my couch. You had to go through our kitchen to get to the laundry room, and it was just out of my sight where I was on the couch. I was playing on a laptop when I hear the plastic laundry basket go toppled off the laundry machine, along with a few other things that I didn't recognize. I was a bit spooked because my dad was working and my mom and sister were in our yard. I was shaken up after the previous time I thought someone was in our house, so I was scared to go look. Yes, I know, I'm a baby. A little while later, my sister comes inside and I ask her to go look in the laundry room and tell me if anything fell. She says no. I ask her if she is sure, if the laundry basket is still on top of the machine like usual. She says yes, everything is normal. She was a little confused as to why I was so curious about the laundry, but I just brushed it off. Einstein believed that time could overlap sometimes, that maybe what I was hearing was a little wrinkle in time of when those things have actually fallen, but it passes, leaving me confused and a little frightened. Could these two instances have been a little glitch? A glitch in time seems like the only way to explain those loud crashes, but nothing moved at all. About 6 years later, I still am not sure what the deal was. Nothing like this has ever happened again. So why then? Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 54. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories and sent in stories for use in this video. I'd also like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to, make sure I get this man's name right, Jonathan Gallegos, I think that's correct, who was actually the author of story number 3. Jonathan has a YouTube channel, he's an aspiring musician, and I'm not just saying this because he let me use the story. I've been to his channel, I've checked out several of his videos, and he actually has a bit of talent. So I'm going to include a link. I'll put it at the top so everyone can see it. I'm going to include a link to his channel. So if you're looking to, if like me, one of the things you like to discover on YouTube is new musicians, maybe head on over there, and if you like what you hear, maybe hit subscribe on his channel. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.